What's going on, everybody? This is Sean of Raw Select Music. Today I want to talk about this album right here. This is Kiefer's Between Days, released on Stone's Throw digitally on April 24th and on vinyl on August 27th, 2021. Seeing as how I was a huge fan of Kiefer's music, I was super happy to find out that what I thought was going to be a digital-only release was getting a vinyl release, so I ran out and picked it up immediately. And now that I've given it quite a few listens, wanted to share my thoughts and opinions of it with you guys and let you know if it's worth checking out. So with that being said, yeah, let's talk about this guy. Prior to the release of this album, producer, pianist, and beatmaker Kiefer Shackelford released 2 EPs in 2018, Super Bloom and Bridges. According to Kiefer and Stone's Throw's own website, Between Days was meant to close out that trilogy, and that the album was about transition, feeling old even though I'm not, missing friends, finding purpose, and remaining hopeful. Also, over on the website, you can find a few songs and their meanings mentioned in little blurbs which you can check out for yourself, as well as make sure that you check out the accompanying videos for some of the songs from this album, as they are quite beautiful in their own right. But sadly, it looks like this is one of the most critically overlooked albums of the year, and that really is a shame, because not only is this my current favorite Kiefer project, it's also another fantastic release from an already fantastic year for Stone's Throw as a label in terms of their own releases. And it's definitely one of my favorite records of the year right now. If you're unfamiliar with Kiefer's music at this point, broadly speaking, you could simplify it down to piano-led jazz over hip-hop beats. And I know that's kind of a gross oversimplification, but for the sake of brevity, we'll just go with that. He's added other elements to his music, including bits of funk, neo-soul, and electronic music into it, but broadly speaking, those are the two things that really stick out. Thusly, on a lot of the tracks, you're going to hear a lot of jazz piano, with a lot of melodic improvisation and a lot of sort of loose Dilla beats. And those are probably the broadest strokes in describing Kiefer's music. But here he stretches out a little bit, with the opener being a very spacious, very subdued, and ultimately very intimate cover of The Cure's In Between Days. It's kind of surprising because it's probably the least hip-hop pronounced track on here, but it's definitely a standout moment in all of its sort of melodic beauty, as Kiefer really sort of gently strokes the keys on here and creates his own sort of feel for this track. At the end of the album, he ends up covering Roy Ayers' classic Everyone Loves the Sunshine, and does it with plenty of finesse. I feel like this is actually one of the weaker moments on here, because I think it almost sticks a little bit too close to the overall feel of that track and doesn't really do anything fresh with it. But on the other hand, it's still well made, and it is definitely still an enjoyable track. It doesn't, to me, quite measure up with some of the really fantastic moments on here. Like the 2 tracks that follow, Between Days, Superheroes, and Friends, are now 2 of my absolute favorite Kiefer tracks. The amount of emotion and melody, dynamics, especially in the track Friends, the way that the song swells up with these absolutely gorgeous synths and then quickly dissipates into this very meditative melody over some light but still fairly pronounced drums that are extremely loose and very similar to a lot of the stuff that he's done up until this point, is one of the best musical moments that I've heard this year. Honestly, my own words can't do this track enough justice. Pause this video right now if you haven't, and go listen to that track. It is just absolutely divine. Superheroes does a pretty similar job to it in terms of being an emotionally effective track, although it's a little bit more straightforward in its rhythm and in terms of the beat programming on it. It's still one of my favorite tracks on here, and I absolutely love it. And then the second side of this record is probably the most straightforward hip-hop stuff that he's done up until this point. The collaborative track with the count entitled Running Out the Clock is exactly what you would expect in terms of a collaboration of Kiefer's melodic sensibilities meeting the Count's percussive sensibilities. And it's just another brilliant moment on a record filled with brilliant moments. And then the other two tracks to round out the rest of the track list, Work in Purpose with 10.4 Rog and His Heart Grew 3 Sizes featuring Lakey Inspired, are also two more straightforward hip-hop tracks with that Kiefer sound, but just done with so much more focus. One of the problems that I had with Super Bloom is there were a few tracks that just felt a little bit more meandering and a little bit more experimental, which is fine. I can't hold that against an artist, but I really like the conciseness and the concertedness of Kiefer really going for a straight up jazz-led hip-hop album, and he's succeeded in spades on this. Honestly, I don't know what else to say about this. I think this is one of Kiefer's best projects to date. Melodically, it's on point. The jazz improv stuff works really, really well. It's not the most experimental of all of his projects, but in what it lacks in that department, it makes up in being one of the most focused projects from Kiefer to date. There isn't a note on here wasted, and I absolutely love that about this album. So, considering how much I absolutely love this project, his full-length album that I still haven't had a chance to listen to yet has some pretty big shoes to fill. But until then, cannot recommend Between Days enough. And if you haven't listened to this guy yet, you're missing out on one of the best projects of the year. So that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching. If you've listened to this album for yourself, please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. If you want to hear this album for yourself, please head over to my WordPress blog, because that's where I post music links to any of the records that I talk about on this channel. Also, make sure you head over to my Twitch channel, Raw Select Music Sean, every Monday, 11 a.m. Japan Standard Time for Live from the Record Room. There you can hear me play records like the ones that I talk about in these videos, as well as a whole host of other records in my collection that I don't get a chance to talk about. Links to everything, as always, down in the description. That's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. So until then, peace out!